Welcome, everyone, to the Everything EOS Livestream. My name is Steph. I'm your host for today. We got a great show lined up. Thank you for everyone who's joining bright and early, right at the start. We got Mel, we got Yana, we got MSH, we got EOS Nation in the chat. Thanks for joining. Remember, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're here next month as we do this show every single month. So we got lots to talk about, but before we get started, a bit of housekeeping. Let's give it a couple minutes to let people roll on in here. So introduce yourself in the chat during the show. Anytime you want to ask questions to me, to the guests, or whatever, make sure to drop it in the live chat. We've got people working, monitoring that, letting the guests know when there's interesting comments or questions to address. So we try to make the show as interactive as possible, and all of that happens in the live chat. So get in there, let us know what part of the world you're tuning from. Let us know what you're doing right now. Are you skipping work to tune into the show? That's what's up. Are you at work and also tuning into the show, doing two things at once? Now that's what's up. You eating, you drinking, what are you eating, what are you drinking? Share it in the chat, let us know. Let's get this engagement going. Make sure the YouTube algorithm loves us, and make sure EOS gets as much exposure as possible. So if you're enjoying the conversation that's going to happen later today, you want to keep that conversation going, join the EOS community in the EOS Global Telegram group. We've got about 10,000 people in there from all over the world. All languages are in there. Telegram has this feature, live translation. Actually, side note, Telegram's killing it out there. Good job, Telegram. I learned more about this company lately, and I'm impressed. But anyways, EOS Global for the EOS community, that's where you can have the conversation any time of the week, 24/7. All the community members are in there. So make sure you join us there for live chats. And as well, on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, on top of the text chat, we've got some audio chats going on. So join us on Telegram. And today, we got lots of prizes to be won as always. So make sure you stay alert for that. Now we got some hot topics and discussions coming. But before we get to the overview of today's show and the segments, let's get the whole team on air and introduce everyone properly for once. Hey, look at that. The whole gang is here. Let's start with some introductions. Yves La Rose, founder and CEO of the EOS Network Foundation. You may know him as the Big Beard Samurai. Welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Next up, we've got Zach Gall. Some of you may remember him as the OG host of the Everything EOS show. Now, Director of Developer Relations at the ENF. Welcome, Zach, to the show.
Always happy to be here.
All right. Next up, we have Nathan James, the legend, developer of the first EOS wallet Scatter when no other wallets were available. These days, Director of Developer Relations for the ENF, helping devs all over the world build better apps on EOS. That's what's up also. Welcome, Nathan.
Hello. You didn't have two directors of developer relations there for a second.
Oh no, did I mess up my title? Well, we're gonna keep going. Next up, we've got Brandon Lovejoy, the eternal optimist, always open-minded, and the true beacon of kindness and peace. These days, the head of community relations at the ENF. Welcome, Brandon. Thanks for joining the show.
Glad to be here.
All right. Myself, my name is Steph. I'm an EOS community member since September 2017, co-founder of EOS Nation, one of the top block producers on EOS, and proud, as always, to be your host today. And finally, we have Liam, communications manager for ENF, also our live stream producer, working behind the scenes to make the magic happen. Not only that, making the magic happen on his birthday. Happy birthday, Liam.
Oh, man. Happy birthday.
Thanks, guys.
On behalf of the ENF and on behalf of EOS, happy birthday, Liam.
Happy birthday, Liam.
Happy birthday, Liam.
Happy birthday, Liam.
Happy birthday, Liam. And finally,
Happy birthday, Liam.
If you're playing a recording.
We're all here. We could have done this live.
We could have, but I had everything set up and I was not gonna use my top row of my Stream Deck.
Thank you,
So
guys.
guys, how's it going? Everyone hyped for the show today?
Good. I think we got some juicy topics. Mainly the tokenomics. We'll be doing that in the second segment. First segment, we'll talk a little bit about exSat with the I'm talking Big Beard segment that we do on the show. We'll talk about some of the upcoming events for exSat. Yves will be in Hong Kong next week with the EOS Labs team. I'll get into that. But then the second segment we come on at the end of the show, we'll dive into the tokenomics proposal, which was published last week. I had a call last Wednesday with the top EOS BPs. We'll dive into what the proposal is. We'll kind of give you guys, the EOS community, a presentation of it, similar to what the block producers got last week, and then we'll dive into some updates that may have occurred in conversations that have occurred since then, feedback, and so on and so forth. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Anyone else want to share a little something, or are we ready to get into the good stuff?
Let's do it.
Boom.
All right. Thanks for joining. See you guys in. Oh. Who's hosting? Is it still me? Hey, I'm still the host. All right. So Zach gave us a quick little heads up of what he'll be talking about. Other than that, I'm going to start off the show with the EOS Ecosystem Spotlight, of course. Then we'll head on to our first Big Beard Banter segment, talking about Asia trip. And then Fireside Chat with Beatrice Wang, followed up by Nathan coming in hot with some EOS Developer news as always, Leap updates, EVM news, more tooling, community updates, all of the good stuff. And then, of course, the Developer Challenge, always 1,000 EOS prize up for grabs. And then Big Banter number 2 to close out the show. Tokenomics proposal discussion. We have no idea how long it's going to be, so it's the last piece of the show, and we'll see how long the guys go. So definitely stay tuned for that. Drop your questions in the chat between now and then. If you got questions for Zach or Yves about the new tokenomics proposal, definitely we'll be keeping an eye out on that, and there'll be plenty of time to address them. All right, so if you're excited for these topics, leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into today's segments. All right. EOS Ecosystem Spotlight is where the community submits stories for me to share with all of you. So make sure to submit your stories throughout the month if you want to be included in the EOS Community Spotlight. So in the EOS for the Ecosystem Spotlight today, we've got 4 stories. Let's get into it. All right, EOS Job Board. So that's job-board.io is now in their official testing phase. So the new Web3 job board built on EOS has now been developed and is officially in the testing phase. The project was fully funded by the upscale community and aims to make it easy for those in the Web3 space to find freelancers to complete work on their projects. The tooling will be part of a broader upscale software package that will have full interoperability and will be offered to the entire Antelope community. Head to job-board.io to check it out, or reach out to Mel Pierce, dedicated EOS community member, for more information. Thanks for the submission. Next up, we've got the Upland Genesis Design Challenge. As always, Upland keeping it hot with some great promos for the community. This week, Upland unveils an extraordinary opportunity for designers, the Genesis 2024 Design Challenge. This is a chance for creators to leave your mark on the vibrant world of Upland. Snag some fantastic rewards in the process. The contest leverages recently released features for unique buildings that can be linked to specific geographic locations where only buildings of that particular theme are allowed to exist. Here's the exciting part. The winning designs selected by the Upland team will unlock greater opportunities. The victorious designer will be tasked with creating 3 additional models in the same theme, ultimately designing a neighborhood that exclusively features these distinctive models. So learn more about Upland at play.upland.me and head to the links shared in the chat for more information on this contest. All right, next up, we're going to the land of DeFi on EOS Native, where DeFi Box is offering a suite of tools to manage RAM. That's right. Did you know that you can engage with RAM on EOS through the DeFi Box ecosystem? DeFi Box is a one-stop DeFi application platform that's been serving the EOS community since 2020. Recently, the team has rolled out several features designed to make engaging with RAM markets more user-friendly, allowing users to monitor markets, purchase, sell, and convert RAM. Head to defibox.io/RAM to check it out. If EOS native is not your thing, you're more familiar with the EVM ecosystem, head on over to the EOS EVM, where Noah DeFi offers high APY for farming incentives. Noah is the leading DeFi platform that is built on top of the EOS EVM ecosystem. The application recently began to offer high APY returns for those who are providing liquidity and farming on the platform. This comes alongside a suite of other powerful DeFi tools for EVM users on EOS. Head over to noahark.io to explore the Noah ecosystem. All right, round of applause for our community submissions this week. Make sure to submit yours if you want me to talk about your project next month on the Everything EOS livestream. All right, let's head on over back to the office. Friendly reminder to hodl. If you're holding cryptocurrencies today and it's down a lot, now is not the time to sell. Just hodl. Friendly PSA. All right, so what do we have up next on the docket? I think we're gonna have Zach and Yves join me for their first Big Beard Banter.
I think I need to just start this off by, you just did the call to action on projects submitting their news. There's more things happening in the EOS ecosystem, but it's community driven. The projects themselves need to submit the news. We ping you guys. Come on, drop us the news. We will give their time. All right.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
That's for projects submitting their news to us. All right. Welcome back, Yves, Zach. Again.
Hello.
Second appearance on the show. Already warmed up a bit,
what?
maybe?
No.
What?
do you mean? I get second appearance today. Yes. Yes. He's correct. Yes. But at first, when he said that, I was also thinking it's the second show we've ever done. No.
Here I am thinking we're all warmed up. It's going to be a smooth introduction. Not quite. All right.
No.
Better luck next time, guys. All right. I'll leave you guys to it. Let me know what's going on in the Asia side of things, conferences, events, and I'll be back in a bit.
So I think this one's more of just so as far as I'm aware, I talked to the exSat team, which is mainly been owned and operated by EOS Labs. They're almost finished with the white paper. I know a lot of people have been asking for it. It's, as far as I understand, gone through multiple revisions. So one of the reasons,
rewrites, completely different fundamental changes to the approach as well. So that's why it's taken so long. The direction is a very different, and a lot of that is based on stakeholder outreach from last time while we introduced it, as well as kind of the approach to what we're seeing with other products, other Bitcoin scaling solutions going out there. Yeah.
And I think one of the things, everyone wanted the white paper about a month or so ago, especially the tokenomics. The tokenomics are the one piece. Even in the intro article that was published to their blog, it did not include tokenomics, and that was for a good reason. Once these things are published, they're harder to change, I guess, because why not just wait a little bit? So I, as far as I'm aware, I'm not involved with it, but that is all coming to a head soon to be able to share. Last month, Yves, you were at Web3 Festival in Hong Kong to talk about exSat mostly at the conferences there. But then next week, there are two really big Bitcoin conferences in Hong Kong, and you will be there again. So on May 7th and 8th at Hong Kong Science Park, you will be, well, not just you, it's going to be the whole EOS Labs team as well. There will be an exSat booth at Bitcoin DevCon. So Bitcoin DevCon is the premier forum for Bitcoin innovation designed for developers, visionaries, and creators, poised to build the future of Bitcoin. It's not just a meetup. It's a crucible of inspiration where a community of passionate builders and engineers converge to build their groundbreaking ideas and bring their innovations to life. So this is basically the developer focused portion of Bitcoin Asia. So I'll get into Bitcoin Asia in a second, but for Bitcoin DevCon, so part of it's a hackathon and part of it's a conference. So it's really to meet the developers and the builders, because as you saw from what has been made public about exSat, its target demographic is protocols and tools and wallets that need access to Bitcoin state data. That's why it's the data availability layer for Bitcoin. So doing the business development and making those introductions and networking with the business developers, I think, is the number one goal of attending these conferences, and especially in Hong Kong, because a lot of the developer focus is in Asia. So as part of the Bitcoin DevCon, obviously there's the hackathon. exSat's not participating in the hackathon. There will be a booth there with Beatrice will be there from EOS Network Foundation, and then pretty much most of the EOS Labs team will be there too. So if you're going to be in Hong Kong, this event, I think the ticket price is much cheaper than the Bitcoin Asia, which is on May 9th and 10th. But as also part of that, Yves, you'll be giving a keynote at the VIP dinner on May 7th. You'll also be doing a panel discussion talking about exSat again on May 8th on the stage at the conference. And then that's on May 7th and 8th. On May 9th and 10th is Bitcoin Asia. This is the bigger conference. This is the sponsored by Bitcoin Magazine. So as part of that, exSat will also have a booth there at location number 132. If you look on the exSat Twitter, they posted a little conference map if you'll be there. Yves, you'll be doing some interview with Bitcoin Magazine. So hopefully, I'm not sure if that'll be a video interview, a text interview, but hopefully we'll be able to share that after the fact.
That's good to know. That's alpha right there. I didn't even know.
Yeah. So Yves, I don't. You are the native English speaker of exSat, I believe, because the majority of the team is based in Asia. They speak English, obviously, might not be their first language, but it seems to me that the more I've learned about this after kind of being part of the foundation for the last couple of years, is a lot of Asia-based companies love having a Westerner as the figurehead to be able to speak publicly about these projects.
Well, it's very similar to EOS, right? We've got a mix of people from all around the world. I would say for exSat as well, and so I'm not the only Westerner there. But yes, in general, there is a mix of West and East, and everybody's got a distinctive role within the project. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other component to all of this is the business development. So working towards whether there's soft or hard agreements of getting validators in place and synchronizers in place, because when the network does launch, there needs to be at least 21 validators. You need to have at least 100 Bitcoin staked as part of the requirement. So obviously that's a big part of it. I do believe there will be at least one, potentially more partnership announcements during the conferences of some of those synchronizers and or validators. So stay tuned for that news next week. But as far as that, I don't believe there's any other exSat news to share, except stay tuned.
Yeah.
White paper.
Yeah.
And the socials. Yeah. Big thing people want to talk about is the tokenomics, which we will get to in the very next segment.
We're going to get to that in the second portion, though, because there's quite a lot to do there. And I think we do have some alpha with that wasn't in the proposal, but that I guess we've been working on, and that's going to be part of the actual proposal, which would be an MSIG, because it's not real until it's actually real on chain. And so we'll be able to drop that. And I think you know what I'm talking about because you made charts about it. So they'll give it a little hint.
Ooh, oh yes.
Ooh. Yeah, because we've not talked about that. And that wasn't in the proposal, but that will be essentially what we're proposing with that.
That's the tease, everyone.
They were like
now
blue purple charts, if you want a little bit more ideas of which charts I'm talking about.
Liam, I'm going to send you a file.
I do want more ideas of the charts you're talking about, because I have absolutely no idea. But that was great work, Yves, teasing that future segment. So make sure you stay tuned, everyone, for that last segment. There's going to be some blue stuff going on. Who knows? Thanks, Yves. Thanks, Zach, for this first segment. And I'll see you guys in just a little bit once more. All right. Thanks for the conversation, Yves. If you want to join the conversation, you want to keep it going, join us on Telegram, EOS Global. That's where the community hangs out, and that's where we have all sorts of discussions. All right. Next up, we're going to throw to our Fireside Chats of the month. This time featuring Brandon from the ENF, as well as my notes are failing me right now. Let's just go to the
Wow, BB, you must be really thirsty. That's a lot of water.
Hello, good morning, Brandon.
Good morning. Now everyone can see how much water you drink every day.
Drinking more water is better for your health.
That's right. Drink lots of good fresh water. All right, that's our PSA for today. Welcome back to another Fireside Chat. I'm Lovejoy. Today, we're joined by none other than Beatrice Wong of the ENF, communications manager, and on the same team with yours truly. So it's just a real pleasure to have you join us today, BB. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Brandon. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, anything else I missed there in the introduction that you want to share, or just a little bit about you?
So I'm Beatrice Wong, and I'm the community manager in EOS Network Foundation. I represent the Chinese community. I will report what is like everything in China community. I will also do some other things like be the host of the monthly TP call, and I will join conferences happen in other places like Hong Kong conference and the Thailand conference. Great to meet you guys.
So I guess my first question for you is, there have been a lot of changes. There's a lot going on. There's WRAM. There's all this exciting stuff happening in the community right now. What's the mood like in the Chinese community, or how have you seen the Chinese community changing, or maybe touch on that a little bit?
Actually, I have been here for like almost 5 years. So I experienced a lot and saw a lot of things happen, and I know the community. And yes, they changed a lot. Now we have EOS Network Foundation, and we do a lot of work in media promotion, and we also add many booths and panels in those conferences. So now we got more channels to let people get know better about EOS and EOS Network Foundation. So this is about changes. And another question, you asked about the mood in the community. Of course, right now the pop star is WRAM. Everybody is talking about WRAM. Also, another topic is popular is about how to promote EOS and the WRAM better. Of course, there are something like problems and the barriers happen, like wallet questions or the register problems. But good news is that we have so many volunteers, and they are willing to help. But other thing is like the Token Pocket wallet, which is the most popular wallet in China. Now they don't have the EOS chain. But good news is that they promised that I think in 1 or 2 months we will have the EOS chain in their new version of iPhone Token Pocket.
No, it's great. You touched on Token Pocket, and I know that there was some sort of grant from the ENF to Token Pocket to build out that iOS wallet. But that's exciting that there'll be another way for the Chinese community to interact. So speaking of WRAM and speaking of Token Pocket, it's my understanding that there was some sort of grant with Token Pocket to aid in the completion of the iOS version of the wallet. So that'll be really exciting. So that's something for the community to look forward to. Beatrice, you also touched on some of the contests you've been running. Maybe you could give us some details about the Binance Square contest and the engagement you've seen there.
Our Binance Square contest now is the phase 2. We had a plan for the 3rd contest, but maybe in next month or the end of this month. So about the last two one, it's 1 week contest. So during 1 week, we at least get like 5,000 posts in Finance Square. Amazing, right?
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have like more than 100 participants. And also for the third contest, I want to know what do you think about it. So if you have any like advice or suggestions, you can find me in Telegram and tell me like do you have any good like website or like something like Finance Square that we can share our ideas and we can promote EOS and WRAMs. So if you have any suggestions, you can just talk to me.
Well, that's great. So it sounds like there's just been a ton of energy on those first two contests, and you're looking to line up a third one, and you're open to other venues that might be more accessible to Western audience as well. I know Binance Square might not be available for everybody. I'm not sure who can log into Binance at this point, but I guess that's a call to the community to get in touch with Bibi and let her know your suggestions for where they can best participate in upcoming contests. Beatrice, I did want to circle back on one item which was I alluded to earlier, which is just sort of the scale of the Chinese and Asian community more broadly. Could you give us a sense for like how many different channels, whether we're talking about Telegram or WeChat or wherever folks are organizing, and what the level of energy and engagement is in those places?
Good question. So now we have Telegram community, also we have WeChat community. There are many Chinese people, they are really active in Telegram as well. As you can see, we have an Alice group, and there are more than, now it's around 400 people already, and 70% of them come from Chinese community, and they all have at least 10,000 EOS, which is very great. And also in WeChat community, we have like more than 10 groups about WRAM, and every group at least have like 100 people. So, but the biggest group, there are more than 500 people. So I think we have like 2,000 people in WeChat community. And there is an interesting that I can share is we have one group which called 108 Goodman. It's about who owns the RAMs more than 100 M. So you can get into that group. But why the number is 108? Because there is an ancient, like a legend of like 108 soldiers fighting in Liangshan. This is an ancient story. So we have a rule for that group. It's like the room's members' numbers has to be 108. No more and no less. So if somebody wants to come into the group, we have to kick one out. If somebody wants to like get out, then you have to find someone to buy RAM.
Nice. I like it. Really cool. So it sounds like there's at least 2,000 active members across all these different channels, and that's exciting. That sounds like a renewed energy, talking about EOS, talking about RAM, all these different related topics. So keeping up with that many channels is is no small feat. So good work there. It's a lot of conversations to engage in. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you, Bibi. Hopefully we can make this kind of a regular thing and have you back, and you can tell us what's going on in the Asian community. And I always look forward to your insights, and great to have you on your very first Fireside Chat.
Yeah, the same day. Yours. Great.
Mine's a lot heavier. Cheers.
Cheers. You have to drink it.
Oh, sorry. That's bad luck if I don't drink.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers, Brendan. Cheers, BB. Great interview. Apologies, BB, for forgetting your name for a second there. I hope you forgive me. BB is great. I hope you guys learned a bit more about BB, as well as it was very interesting learning about all the activities going on in the Asian side of the community. They always come up with such creative promos. Army of 108, whatever that was. That's so interesting. And yeah, I've worked with BB actually on some contests, etc. She's always been great, regardless if it's super late for her when we have our meetings. All right. So moving on to our next segment. At this time, I'll invite Nathan James to join me and talk tech a bit. Well, he'll talk tech. I'll dip out.
Thanks, Steph. It looks like I need to get a giant water jug now, though I am deathly afraid of having that around my computer. As always, good morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. If you're a dev, doesn't really matter anyway. We hold bi-weekly developer roundtables on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. UTC, where you can come and talk about any subject you want. The last one was a presentation by one of the community members for something that he would like to see in Antelope. Pretty cool stuff. If you want to join, make sure that you're in the group at t.me/Antelope Devs. That's ANTELOPE Without further ado, let's get into the tech stuff. Crypto Lions, the maintainers of the Jungle testnet, are beginning Wave 3 testing of Savannah, the new consensus model, for a testnet launch preparation of the July 31st hard fork. This is a pretty significant milestone, as it shows just how close we are to getting this live. I'm not sure how many people realize the scope of what these changes will unlock, but it's going to be pretty incredible. And I can't wait. The WRAM Utils app has been upgraded. This is an application that has a bunch of utilities for WRAM. You can buy, sell, transfer, burn, wrap, and now unwrap. This is the new WRAM stuff. So a little bit of a recap on what WRAM is. It's a system level RAM wrapper that acts like a typical EOS.io token because RAM itself isn't formatted that way. It can't be listed on exchanges in the same way. So this is kind of wrapping that into a interface that the exchanges know and support. This can, it has also been audited by BlockSec, and being able to transfer RAM between accounts means you can now hold RAM for projects you need without having to sell and buy out on the other accounts. This is a problem that has been plaguing developers on the ecosystem for a long time. You'd have to incur fees on both sides of that, the buy and the sell, just to move RAM from, let's say, your RAM holding account to other smart contracts that you wanted to create that might need the RAM. So this is a really good feature for developers to have. The EOS template projects, this is a new thing that's kind of coming to life. It's also part of the developer challenge. This is a new template project repository, which was created on the ENF's GitHub org to house the outputs of the developer challenges and also templates that I'm personally creating to kind of bootstrap this. The first one that's up there is the meme machine. This is at mememachines.netlify.app. It's kind of like a meme token creator. It goes through the whole process of how to do this with the front end. It happens to be using SvelteKit. It's using WharfKit as the integration layer between the blockchain and the front end. It's also got a smart contract in there, which is just an adaptation of the EOS.io.token, but adds a little bit of ability to store kind of like a CID from IPFS, and it also uses Pinata for the IPFS stuff. This is the first up there, but it's going to be the first of potentially many, especially the ones that are coming from the developer challenge. So make sure that you keep an eye on the next segment that's coming, because it's going to be how you can earn 1,000 EOS by contributing efforts there. The Fuck Yeah framework, this is the JavaScript smart contract development framework for EOS, has the ability to clone these starter kits now. So you can just do npx fuck yeah starter and then list one of these starter kits, which will save you needing to go to the repository and pull down the entire repository, select one of those templates, clone it over to your own project, and et cetera, et cetera. It's a little bit of a hassle, so this is just a nice little neat way to do it. There is another wrapper around this. So in JavaScript land, it is very typical to have npm create something instead of npx with a whole bunch of command lines. So we do have a new CLI called create EOS, which allows you to do npm create EOS. And this will give you the option to either select one of those templates. It'll pull it all down. You don't have to go to the repository. It'll just show you which template to choose from a long list. And then you can create a blank template, which will, a blank project, which will include Fuck Yeah as the smart contract development framework with Vert, the JavaScript testing framework. And then you'll also be able to select either SvelteKit or Next.js for React or Nuxt for Vue. And that'll just scaffold everything for you in a nice little neat package that kind of follows some best practice standards for developing on Antelope and the EOS network. Right now, a lot of work is also being done towards the Tokenomics proposal. In the background, there is a PR up on the reference contracts and the system contracts, which is kind of putting it all together. But we'll dig back into that next time once it's all solidified so that we can talk about the real outputs of that instead of the moving target, which is what it is right now. And I think I'm throwing to myself here to the developer challenge, but I guess I'm throwing to Steph first. So thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Nathan. And now throwing to Nathan for the developer challenge.
I'm Nathan James here with another EOS developer challenge. But first, the last challenge has been completed with 1,000 EOS going to Ross from EOSphere for creating an excellent Hyperion guide that has been added to the docs. If you want to see it, head over to docs.eosnetwork.com and then go to the node operations section under native. On to the next challenge. This time we have an ongoing initiative where you can claim rewards on demand. The challenge? Creating template projects for EOS. These are easily forkable projects that get new developers started in the ecosystem without much setup. For this challenge, each project should have both a front end and a smart contract. They should use the Fuck Yeah framework for EOS smart contracts and include tests. They should also use a modern front end framework like React or SvelteKit. They should also use free UI kits like skeleton.dev, Tailwind UI, or Next UI. Be careful because badly designed projects will not be accepted. There should be real visible effort put behind these projects, and they must be MIT open sourced. Once you've completed a project, post about it in the Antelope developers chat and tag me. I'll take a look, and if the project is up to standards, it'll be forked over to our organization and rewards will be distributed instantly. Each project you complete is worth 1,000 EOS. Here are some examples of the types of projects that I'm looking for. An NFT minting website, decentralized Twitter, simple DAO voting, decentralized Fiverr, and a WordPress plugin for EOS. Good luck, and I'm looking forward to your submissions.
All right. Thanks, Nathan. For those of you who are wondering, I messed up earlier in the show throwing to the Fireside. That's what threw this whole thing off. But thank you, Nathan, for that great tech update. Good luck to all the devs out there chasing the 1,000 EOS. And now for our final segment of the day, let's bring Yves and Zach on for a third time on this show for our final Big Beard Banter, talking all about the tokenomics proposals. Guys, take it away.
All right. So I guess how this all started, we could recap. A couple of months ago, Yves, you dropped some, streams of consciousness of several different, they're well thought. The one was super detailed. All these different ideas for new tokenomics. I think there are at least 3 different ones that were radical in different ways. And then
it's all talking about, there was different approaches, but very similar idea in the background. Yeah. Obviously, everybody was making up their own assumptions of what that could mean. But there was one that was pretty concrete. I even went into detail in terms of the tokenomics, how many tokens at the time was 2 billion, how those would be split. But it ignited a conversation, right? And then we had the BP call very shortly after, which then set us off on further direction of what that could be. And yeah. But yes, this all started, I think, 2.5 months ago. And we talked about this before as well. It's always tricky. If we don't make anything public as the sausage is being made, people complain. If we do make it public as the sausage is being made, people complain. And so in this case, everything has been completely public from the very beginning. You're seeing the sausage being made, but there is no consensus reached on what that could be yet. And so it's just a continual iteration. And the latest version you've seen, which is what was presented last week, is I guess what we'll dive deeper into. And then I alluded to some alpha earlier, but then I just realized afterwards what I was thinking of was made public this morning. So it's alpha if you didn't notice this morning. It's not alpha if you actually didn't notice this morning.
So I guess we could. I already dropped it in the EOS Legends chat. Basically, so there's multiple buckets. Liam, could you pull up? Well, I guess that's one of them. Can you pull up the one with the different buckets and distribution? We could kind of just dive into. There we go. So I think the main at the crux of this tokenomics proposed was two things. One, no more inflation on the EOS network. Even though, like we've had this conversation before, having a fixed supply with some kind of vesting schedule of non-circulating supply and circulating supply is
effective inflation. You're bringing tokenizations out of circulation into circulation. That is effective inflation, yes.
But from a perspective, from the perspective of the industry that we're in, and the thought leaders that are in this space, and the opinions of those thought leaders, and it's just inflation bad. And I think it goes all the way back to the inception of Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah.
So the number one thing that's happening here is no more inflation. So you have
stop inflation and burn roughly 80%, 79 point something percent of future token supply. Most people don't know, but the token supply is capped in EOS. It's capped at 10 billion. And essentially we'd be locking that at 2.1 billion. And so that's why I say roughly 80%. And it's a similar method to what Bitcoin uses in terms of the, I guess, vesting or bringing tokens out of circulation into circulation for the majority of the bucket. So the effective inflation actually goes down considerably very, very quickly. And every 4 years, it goes down even further.
Yeah, so I think the other thing that may have caught some people off guard was the number 10 billion. And the reason is because if you go on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko and you look at maximum supply, they actually have an infinity symbol.
Yes.
Because
and EOS doesn't have the same metrics. For example, when people talk about FDV, you can't find an FDV on EOS anywhere because they put that infinite number, when in fact, through code, there wasn't a 10 billion limit. And so if that was adequately represented, the view of EOS would be very different. And so now with this, that will now essentially fix that gap. So you will have an, I guess, circulating token supply as well as then future coming into circulation token supply. And then we'll now have, I guess, this, if this passes, if this reaches consensus, we'll have similar I guess wording or a similar view than the other projects. Essentially, we are quite unique in that sense that we are active token supply is the circulating token supply. Even if you go back to the tweet that I made that ignited a lot of this is when I did the Elmo burn. And media reached out and they're talking about like, oh, you're going to burn your treasury. And at first, say, but which treasury are you talking about? One is we don't have a treasury, but there is through code, I guess, a release of token over the next, until we reach 10 billion tokens. But they couldn't really highlight that because everybody just thinks, but you must have a treasury. You must have, they think in this type of system, and EOS was quite unique. It didn't have that. So now it would move towards something that the rest of the industry is quite familiar with.
Mm-hmm. So I think I was thinking about going over and presenting the proposal, but I think anyone watching this live stream saw your tweet. They saw the PDF file already. So rather than acting like there's people watching this that haven't already seen it, maybe we can go into some of the more minute details that people may not have caught from what was shared. And the first one, Liam, you pull up the staking rewards chart there. So this is a big component of it. Something that EOS has been lacking since its inception is native staking rewards. So currently the only way to get staking rewards is through Rex, through the fees, which is very low, as we all know, and then through voter rewards from the block producers, which is typically most block producers share about 80% of their rewards roughly. So you can get roughly a 2% native yield. Sometimes you can get more if it's being subsidized, but you're capped at 2%, and 2% is typically not enough to incentivize anyone to take their tokens off of exchanges and bring it on chain. And so a big part of the goal with the staking rewards is, one, be able to compete with a lot of the other proof of stake chains that offer juicy staking rewards, but then also incorporate a true lockup. So if you've used Rex before, there's two ways you could lock your tokens in Rex. One's using a savings feature. And whenever you use this savings feature, it's kind of like a cheat code. It's called savings, but it actually allows...
I call it I call it a bug. I mean, that was not the intent, but that's what it ends up doing. You kind of are able to then bypass the 4-day unstaking. Essentially, your tokens are receiving rewards, but they're also liquid. And so that will be closed up as a bug. We've been talking internally about how we will approach that. Maybe the best way to put it is, right now when you're staking into Rex, there's a bunch of different issues. One is it's very complicated, it's quite tricky, and then you go level 1 and then level 2. What we're proposing is actually going to remove level 1, so that when you enter and you stake, you're already at the level 2 portion, which really does lock up your tokens, and you cannot unstake unless you wait that staking period. But this will afford you then, I guess what we're looking at on screen, a significant portion of the staking rewards. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. I kind of screwed up, and this did went out. This did go out this morning, that particular chart. But the idea is that the proposal we'll put forward is for the same vesting schedule that would be applied to the ENF bucket, BP bucket, and Labs bucket is going to be applied to the staking rewards bucket. And the idea would be for 100% of that vesting at a 1-for-1 ratio to be output as yield. This just happens to be that it works out very well for the previous target that we were aiming to hit, which came from the Yield Plus blue paper that we worked on a few years back. And the idea was, if we want to get roughly 300 million EOS staked in the program, and we want to target a roughly 10% APY at that level, obviously variable, if there's less people staking, APY will be higher, more staking, APY will be lower. But if that's the target, you determine your issuance rate. And the issuance rate just happened to be almost the same as the issuance rate from these pools, effective pools. And so we're just going to try to lock it at 1-for-1. And then this is what you see, or you saw on screen earlier. The APY will be essentially predetermined based on the staking levels, as you're looking at on screen. If you have 300 million tokens staking this program, they'll get roughly 10.42% APY. The more tokens staked, the less APY, less tokens staked, less APY. This is in line with all the work that is done in Yield Plus in terms of what's attractive on other chains, what's attractive across the industry, and so it lines up very well. And that's going to be part of the ultimate proposal which we put, which is really the only proposal that matters. It's what's on chain, what's coded, and what people actually have to vote on. Prior to that, it's all a proposal, but not on chain. So until it becomes very real, until people actually have to sign an NSIG and put their BP signature on something, it's still in flux, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to backtrack, because I kind of downplayed Rex. Rex rewards right now are actually pretty good, and that's mainly because of the RAM trading fees.
Yeah.
So I was looking at
this will change though, because all of the network fees will now be directed to the BPs, in particular to the top 21 BPs. So it'll make the top 21 more competitive than it currently is. But in part why, so it aligns incentives to see more transactions on the network. They're the ones who have to bear the cost through infrastructure. We've seen that the BPs outside of the 21 clearly do not run the same level of infrastructure, and they don't bear the cost. So that makes sense. So it'll make that more competitive. But another large reason for that is that at some point, their bucket, which will also go through a vesting schedule, just like Bitcoin, at some point that dwindled down dwindles down to practically zero, then all they will have in terms of incentive will be network fees. Now that is in a while. If you look at the charts that we've provided, essentially 80% of the buckets will be output in the first 8 years, and over 99% of the buckets are output in the first 32 years. Now we're talking about 8 years, 32 years. That's well into the future. It's the same thing as Bitcoin in terms of issuance rate, is the proposal, but it gives you an idea that at some point the BPs and the other buckets too, so ENF labs as well, will rely on nothing but the token price having been higher than what it currently is in order to offset the level of EOS that is being emitted to them, to a point where you really need, it aligns incentive for the token price to keep going up in order for the machinery to keep working as it does currently.
I think that's
that is a significant change compared to currently.
So that's a big note there. I think it was mentioned in the article this morning. I'm pretty sure I remember proofreading that. But basically, at the onset, during the first 4 years before the first halving, the ENF bucket roughly gets the same amount of token funding as it currently gets. But after 4 years, that gets cut in half. 4 years after that, it gets half of the previous half. So over an extended period of time, like the funding, the tokens,
it's effectively zero after I would say, I mean, if you actually look at the numbers, after 12 years, it's effectively negligible. And so the token price has to rise every 4 years by at least double and remain stable at that rate for the effective output to be the same. And that's what I talk about when I mean, or that's what I mean, sorry, when I talk about it aligns incentives to see the value of the project itself grow very much. And we don't really have that right now. That was one of the big things that we heard from stakeholders, is that they want to see that fundamentally at the tokenomic level.
Mm-hmm. And then one more thing on the staking rewards and REX. So the one, you mentioned the fees already. Those will be redirected to BPs. That's what's driving the REX APR currently. But the other thing driving the current REX APR is there's only 50 million EOS staked in the REX. So one of the other goals is how could we get some of these large exchanges to basically offer a wrapped staking offering? So Binance already offers it for EOS and many other chains. Is they basically allow you to lock your tokens through their exchange, and then on chain they'll lock your tokens. And one of the largest exchanges for EOS, one of the largest holders of EOS, is the Upbit exchange in Korea. They hold 200, I don't know the latest number, 225 million EOS.
Yeah, the single largest wallet is the Upbit Cold wallet. Yeah,
and in Korea, they have what's called the travel rule. So they're limited in how many in Korean currency, but how many I think it's around $800 equivalent of you're allowed to exchange on chain. So if you're a large holder, it's very difficult to bring your tokens on chain. And just the culture there is mainly just keep your tokens on the centralized exchange anyway. So one of the goals, and this still needs to play out with Upbit, obviously. So we are trying to make that happen. Is to make the things that are currently happening on chain on EOS available to users who keep their tokens on the centralized exchange. So previously there had been conversations and interest in getting staking rewards for EOS, but the numbers just weren't there. Even if they staked in the REX, it's like if
not
it's
attractive at all.
5% yield of 50 million tokens, if you put a couple 100 million tokens in there, you're going to get nothing. It's not even.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the Upbit Developer Conference last November. I was speaking there. That was one of the things that we talked about, and I was invited to go speak. And that was the thing, is they ran calculations, and if they ran a BP or if they did their own staking, the APY that they could offer was less than 1%, which is just not attractive. And there's a cost to running these programs. There's a cost to administrating it. There's a cost to obviously running a BP and doing that level of infrastructure support. But then there's also just a marketing cost as a whole. And then there's potential risk with everything you do. And so we've got a lot of these tokens that don't have a mechanism to be able to participate directly. They've got the will to be able to do so, but then there are legal restrictions from within the jurisdictions that they're in. And so all of that also went into the stakeholder feedback that we got when designing these tokenomics. And going back at what we were talking about in terms of the admittance rate, If you just looked at it's quite simple in terms of calculation. Let's just take 250 million EOS as the base. That bucket will be the one that will adjust up or down so that it gives exactly 2.1 billion. So the other buckets will be set at the exact amount we mentioned. That one is the one that can adjust. So if it's a little over 950 million tokens that are printed at the time of the MSIG being passed, because it's going to be an exact amount, an exact block, then the overage will go in the staking bucket. A little bit less, it will be taken from that staking bucket, but roughly 250. If you look at the first 4 years, 50% of that will be emitted. And so that's 125 million. 125 million split equally between each year. That gives you, I think, give or take, what, 31 to 50 or something like that. Give or take 31,250,000 tokens. If you just did that, and let's say it stayed the same for the entirety of, and there was no halving, you've got about 10 years worth of that APY that we presented on screen. But what happens is that bucket also goes down after 4 years, 50% immense. So the immense is almost infinite. At some point it becomes quite negligible, and then that will obviously impact APY. But now we're talking about in 4 years, in 8 years, and again it incentivizes so that the price of the underlying asset goes up in order for things to re-equilibrate.
And then I see some comments, just centralized exchange. I don't know the context of it, but the 21-day lockup also is important when it comes to centralized exchanges, because it prevents them from being able to just lock up their cold wallets. If it's instant staking and unstaking to get 10% or higher yield,
which they currently do.
I'm in an exchange, I would just stake my whole hot wallet, collect the rewards, and I could unstake when people want to withdraw. So they can't.
So now it'll be very similar to other chains, where what people will likely do, changes in particular, they'll make a calculation. That's how they manage their cold and hot wallet anyways right now, so they're quite used to this. You know what your daily trading volume is, you know how much you need to have liquid at all times. You then add an extra buffer, and the rest goes in the cold wallet for safety purposes. Well, now you'd be able to use that same the same logic and all the data you already have. You lock up a portion that gives you access to yield. That yield can then be offered to token holders on your platform, but then you don't need to do a one-for-one, right? So we see that exchanges offer promotions, or they have particular buckets that can be filled to a certain amount. So even though, let's say, what we were showing on screen is that the network at a 300 million EOS locked amount would be able to offer essentially 10.42% yield, what may occur is that the exchange might say, okay, we're locking up, making up these numbers, we're locking up 100 million EOS. Maybe their share of that is the 10.42%, but they're only creating a staking program for the next, I don't know, instead of 21 days, maybe they're doing a 14-day lockup period. And they cap it at, again, making this up, 25 million tokens. So now they can offer 25%, for example, reward for that period of time. So they're able to use that as marketing as well. That's quite normal. That's quite standard across the industry. EOS has never been able to benefit from that because we've never had those processes in place. We've never had the tokens in place to be able to do that. So that is completely new in this proposal. And at the same time, same as the other buckets, except two of them, which we can get into afterwards, those are not made fully liquid immediately, and so they vest over time. So it's also not flooding the market with tokens. It's essentially the same issuance rate as right now, a little bit accelerated. And I think you have another chart in that article to showcase the issuance rate versus right now, although it's not apples to apples, but over time and very quickly, it actually becomes much lower than the current emittent rate, but then there's also a cap. At some point, it just doesn't go past a certain amount.
I don't think we included that chart. We wanted to make it prettier.
Yeah, I just thought about it while I was saying it, because you're not comparing apples to apples. The chart I'm thinking of for those listening is if you actually model off what 3% inflation looks like currently over time, and if you model off what this release would look like over time, there's an intersect after a certain amount of years. The problem with that is that it's really not apples to apples, because with the current 3%, you also don't have these other buckets that currently don't exist.
You don't have staking, you don't have middleware, you don't have WRAM market support.
Yeah.
So it's not apples to apples.
But the idea is within a very short period of time, the amount of tokens that are put in circulation are now lower effective than the current tokenomic mechanism of a 3%. But then you're also able to get the benefits that we've been lacking for a very long time of having things like a treasury or having buckets dedicated specifically to things like market making and staking rewards. We currently do not have that.
So speaking of market making, that is the biggest bucket, a fully liquid bucket on the tokenomics. So what do we call it here? I think it's just called RAM market on there. 350 million tokens. Do you want to kind of give a deeper dive into what that bucket means beyond the two little paragraphs on the infographic?
Sure. I mean, the two little paragraphs really sum it up very well. But essentially, that bucket is really dedicated towards RAM market making and RAM purchases. The RAM purchases are in large part because the protocol needs RAM. The protocol itself needs RAM, just like ENF currently has RAM, Labs has RAM, because at some point, and I think we're already kind of there, depending on how you talk, who you talk to, the price of RAM becomes somewhat prohibitive for either account creation or for deploying of smart contracts. This is in part why when the network launched very quickly after RAM issuance began, because the price of RAM was going up very, very quickly. It was a speculative market, but also people recognize that it's a real asset, it's a real thing. And this is part of the talk I gave in Hong Kong roughly a month ago, talking about how RAM is a combination of DePIN and RWA. It's an actual asset. It's physically in people's machines, and once you consume it, the data that is written to it, it does belong to you. It's an actual thing, so it is a real RWA, but it's also DePIN because it's decentralized across all nodes running on the network, regardless of whether they're block producers or not. And so the idea is when the chain was launched, the cost of RAM went up very quickly within a very short period of time. And at that time, there was only, I think it was 64 gigs made available. I think the parameter started in Bancor algorithm with 1 million EOS on one side, 64 gigs of RAM on the other side. And so anyways, long story short, a proposal was passed at the time by the block producers at the time, and they started issuing RAM at 1 kilobit per block. And so when you look at the RAM chart, you clearly see when that change came into place, and it just starts going down because now you're essentially flooding the market with more supply. But then unless that supply is offset by demand, then the value of the asset keeps going down, and that's really what we saw happening. A few months back, EOS Nation Denis proposed that we stop the issuance, and that's when we stopped the issuance. 390 gigs locked, and then you saw what we saw previously happen again. The price of RAM went up. That means the cost of account creation goes up, cost of deploying smart contracts go up. Double-edged sword. There's obviously, if you're trying to create accounts, or you're trying to subsidize accounts, or you're trying to deploy smart contracts, well, now your effective cost just went up. But if ENF, Labs, and the network itself owns part of that asset, they're able to now make partnerships, support, or investments leveraging that asset, right? So this idea, for example, EOS, the ENF currently holds a little over 16 gigs of RAM. If you make the calculations, I forget what the number is, but it's hundreds of millions of accounts. Essentially, this is a non-issue. It's hundreds of thousands of smart contracts, depending on the size of smart contracts. So it's an asset that the network owns that it can now leverage in ENF's case, for example. The network itself will then have a number of RAM, or an amount of RAM that it'll be able to leverage. Part of it will be able to be leveraged in order to be able to fill up order books. But then if we go back to that RAM market, what I was saying earlier, 350 million, there's 10% that's allocated towards what was mentioned as programmatic buys. Think of programmatic buys as basically those buckets are going to be governed by ENF and Labs. When ENF and Labs reach consensus, a 2 out of 2, they will buy RAM. That obviously will push the price of RAM up, but then that RAM will now be able to be used by the network on behalf of those two entities to be able to fill up order books on DEXs, SEXs, to be able to provide liquidity, to be able to leverage for project support, that kind of thing. Then the remaining 90%, the 315 million EOS, will be leveraged through a series of different initiatives with market makers. Now, originally when EOS first started, if we look at the current market maker that we've worked with ENF, it is DWF. When we were engaging with market makers, when we're doing interviews, when we're looking at the different models that we could head in terms of direction, when we're looking at different offerings out there, we were very limited because we didn't have tokens. We were not sitting on the treasury. And so with that in mind, we chose a particular path, but we interviewed the different market makers. The GSR, Winter New, DWF was one of them. We interviewed others as well, smaller ones, and we all looked at what their specialties were. And so some of them are really good and they provide very deep liquidity on certain CEXs. Other them are really specialized in certain DEXs. Some of them are lend models. Some of them are more OTC model. So there's a bunch of different ones. With this bucket, we will now be able to take a multi-pronged strategy in terms of who we work with and for what purpose. We did not have that luxury in the past, and we were quite limited in what we can do and how many tokens we actually had accessible. So in ENF's case, for example, with ENF, we have to keep saving monthly to be able to have tokens to even do something with. And so that's a very long term, very slow output of tokens to be able to put them in the hands of the market maker because we're not sitting on a treasury. But now the network would actually be sitting on a large treasury. Part of that could also be used for, and again, this will be when we discuss with market makers, a strategy of, I'll give a concrete example. Let's say you wanted to put on Uniswap. You wanted to fill up some order books. You want to put a pair on there. Maybe you put the WRAM to EOS pair on there. But maybe there's no liquidity for EOS to ETH or EOS to Bitcoin. And so part of it might just be you also want to fill up other order books from the EOS asset. Again, this bucket is in EOS. Some of it will be used to be able to purchase RAMs that you actually have RAM to make it to fill order books. Some of it might be left in EOS because you actually want to put both sides. Some of it might be converted to USDT or other assets again to be able to put that. The idea is to be able to have a widespread approach of where you're going to be able to get that asset. Currently, that is one of the big issues that we've heard from the community. It's very difficult to purchase RAM or WRAM because it's only localized in one area. And so the idea is now it would be able to be localized in multiple areas across CXs, DEXs, multiple different trading pairs, filling up with adequate order books. And market makers work all very in a similar way, where it's never here's all of these tokens. Typically what they do is they do liquidity reports, liquidity depth reports. They make suggestions. Here's how much we would like. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to put that. Here's the liquidity depth that we're looking at providing. Here's how many tokens we need to be able to make that happen. I can say that when we did the interviews with all of the market makers, the base, give or take base number that they're looking at is about 5% of token supply. 5% of token supply in EOS case at that time was at least 50 million tokens. We never had access to 50 million tokens in that regard. But now with this, we'd be able to actually fill it across different things. But with this new asset RAM, which then obviously benefits that asset class, but also benefits EOS because it is an underlying asset to EOS, and we've seen that it's actually triggered quite a lot of support from within the community.
So the other piece of that bucket, we've been talking about professional market makers. There's also community-based market making through AMMs. So it could also be used as liquidity incentives on DeFi Box, Uniswap, PancakeSwap. Okay, community, you hold a bunch of RAM. Not all of you are developers who actually plan to use that memory. So there's two pieces to this. One is for the staking rewards bucket. It said in the future there would be RAM staking. Staking is really just locking up and doing nothing with your tokens. It's not putting them to work. And there's an asterisk on the proposal that said this contract's not built. And to be frank, it's not even the top priority.
There's no roadmap for it right now at all. The incentives already for RAM holders are already quite very well aligned with this. The incentive for EOS holders is quite very well aligned with this. And so that's why we did single that one out as an idea that was brought up. We are currently not working on this. We have other things that we need to implement to just make this thing come to life, but that is not one of them. The other two things that we are working on that Nathan alluded to in the previous segment was to close the gap on what I call that staking bug that we talked about a little bit earlier, but also adding a 21-day staking period. So currently it's a 4-day, now it'd go to a 21-day, but be fixed so you can't kind of work your way out of it. And then the second portion is to be able to remove another barrier, which is the mandatory voting with your tokens in order to be able to access yield. So that would be removed as part of the proposal. So those are the two things that need to be worked on in order to be able to make this staking initiative come to life.
Yeah. So as far as incentives for RAM, before, because like we said, RAM staking, just forget about that for the time being. And there's plenty of RAM incentives if you hold RAM. But if you want to put the RAM to work through that market making bucket, market making could mean, okay, if you hold, let's say we want to really put a lot behind it, Ethereum WRAM pair on Ethereum. Okay, we could put a liquidity rewards there, so you're getting what, roughly, I don't know, let's say 10% just to make up a number of, if you have both assets and you want to be a market maker yourself, you could stake into there. Or in the more short term, the WRAM token on DeFi box has very little liquidity. It's not even searchable because it doesn't meet the minimal threshold. So for example, if we want to build up the liquidity for WRAM, DeFi box makes it very easy to use any token, your own token, or especially an EOS token, as the liquidity incentive. We could very quickly grow the WRAM pool on DeFi box, and that could happen very quickly after the proposal. So I think if people wanted to hear alpha here, and there was a lot shared in the article this morning. So what are the conversations since the block producer call? Like, what was the general feedback? What's your vibe? How good do you feel about the proposal? Obviously, nothing's a guarantee. You don't know until it's on chain on an MSIG. But
I mean, and that's going to be my canned answer. I mean, we've received a lot of positive feedback, but it's important to keep in mind that this proposal that we put up was worked on by multiple stakeholders. So when we introduced the idea a few months back, some BPs which have, they believe that this is worthwhile. They believe that it was worth spending energy on this, regardless of whether or not this would pass or what this would look like or whatever. Some people started reaching out. And so what you see is actually a combination of a lot of the feedback and pretty much all of the feedback we've received in some way, shape, or form. The reason why I single it out and I don't say all of it is because, again, this concept of the highest minimal or the highest lowest common denominator. And what I mean by that is, of course, everybody's got their own flavor of what they would do specifically. But at the end of the day, this needs to pass. And so if it doesn't reach 15 out of 21 consensus, it is pointless. So everybody can have their own idea of what they think it should be, this particular thing or that particular thing. But if it becomes too niche or too specific, then it becomes very difficult. And I'm not talking about the overall thing. I'm talking about any particular thing in there could potentially stop the entire thing. And so what we always try to do is find the thing that everybody really agrees on at the base, which is that minimal or that lowest common denominator, but then the highest in the sense of, okay, but how much can we push it? Okay, so there's this one idea, if we tweak it this way, could it potentially reach consensus? And so what we've presented is what we believe is the highest lowest common denominator. The caveat I gave in the very beginning is we don't know until it's actually put on chain, when people really have to make a decision on this, and when it actually needs to meet the bar of 15 out of 21. What we've heard so far is all positive. There's been some little tweaks asked, but generally the proposal as you see it is what is currently being coded. There's some people that wanted to have difference in size of bucket or the ratio within a particular bucket, the RAM one, for example. But again, the idea is it needs to pass a 15 out of 21. So you may think that this bucket should be split this way instead of this way. That's fine. Everybody's going to have their opinion. What's important is, but do 15 out of 21 agree on that? And if all you can get is 8 signatures, it's not going to pass. If all you can get is 12 signatures, it's not going to pass. You need to be able to find what is the level at which the network will agree on and consensus. And that's one of the tricky things about EOS, right? It is incredibly decentralized. Everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's coming at this from a different viewpoint, different types of stakeholders. And our challenge is, and that's how I started the BP call essentially, is to try to mirror back to the BPs what we're hearing from them. So you may have, you may disagree on a particular thing personally, or a few of you may disagree on a particular thing personally, and you can be vocal about it. But at the end of the day, 1521 is really what's important. The ENF really doesn't have any decision-making power in here. All we can do is try to present that information to the VPs to the best of our ability, based on the feedback that we get from them, from developers, from token holders, from the community at large and such, and then make adjustments based on that, right? And that is very difficult. So one of the things we also told the VPs, and what we want to know is it even worthwhile keep going down this path? For example, if the VPs say, listen, don't even bother with tokenomics, don't even waste your time on presenting proposals, we're not interested at all, that would be clear direction. But that's not the direction we've gotten. The direction we're getting is, we actually like this, keep working in that direction. But it never becomes real until it's actually on chain. And that's what we're working towards. I guess some of the alpha that we can drop is in terms of timelines. Yeah, okay, some timelines, we can drop some alpha. Need to think of better names for this. But the first portion, which I've been referring to as day 0, we are aiming to get that by the end of May, which is quite aggressive, because we need to finalize the code, because there are a lot of these components just do not exist. After the code is finalized, we need to be able to audit it. After that's done, we need to test it. After that's done, then there's the MSIG. And then by then, typically you have a pretty good idea of how long it's going to take to get it signed. But it's still, we're talking about a multi-week process. You need to get the auditors in. You need to test it for a period of time. You need to actually have people test it. So there's still quite a bit of work to do. But the idea is to get that part out by the end of May, so that then the general idea will be live, up and running. What do I mean by the general idea? 10 billion changed to 2.1 million hard-coded. Inflation completely stopped. The 3 buckets that require the machinery to keep going, so the BP bucket, the ENF bucket, and the LAMS bucket, that code already being deployed, so the issuance continues. Then the other 2 buckets are a little bit easier, because there's really nothing there, but permission sets placed on the RAM bucket and the middleware bucket, both of them being the only buckets that are made liquid at time of launch, but then the permission sets deployed on those. So that's day 0. And then the staking bucket also being made live, as in the tokens are in that bucket. Again, that plus or minus 250 million, because that'll be the overage or the reduction in that bucket. What I call day 1 afterwards will come roughly 30 days afterwards. So if we're aiming for end of May for day 0, we're aiming for end of June for day 1. And day 1 is when now you can actually earn yield on your EOS. So the bucket will be created before that, but we want to market this. We want to bring attention to it. We want to make sure we have how-tos. We want to make sure we have KOLs. We want to make sure we're already, but working towards token listings of WRAM, that we're already working with the exchanges. We're already working with a lot of the partners out there and the stakeholders out there to be able to bring attention to that. So day 0, aiming for end of May. Day 1, aiming for end of June. And then so it's a 30-day mark, 60-day mark, and then 90-day mark is when we're currently aiming for spring 1.0 hard forked. And so we'd have 30, 60, 90, one after another. And in there, I don't know if that was already mentioned. There's another thing that's happening in there. This is yours, so that's why I'm not sure if, is this alpha or...
The timelines are all, none of this is...
Yeah, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of like maybe colors. I'm thinking of like a logo. I'm thinking of something else. Does that give you enough hint?
The brand launch.
Is that new?
I mean, we talked about it months ago. I don't think we've given a timeline, but it will be before the hard fork, probably at the same time as the staking rewards going live.
So the idea is alongside all of that. Pass it over to you.
All leads into the Savannah hard fork on July 31st. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
No, I'm thinking of something else.
What else?
I thought you caught on to that. There's going to be something else that's happening around that period of time, and we're now going to try to align it. So in terms of marketing, there's it's not that big a deal. Now it's making it sound like it's that big a deal. The rebrand, the new logos, the new website. Oh, you did? I didn't hear that. Okay, so alongside all of this, there's also going to be a fresh new face to all of this, new colors, new logo. That's going to be part of the marketing strategy in there as well. So like there's a huge plan on this for the next 3 to 4 months all around this, and it's step by step.
Yes. The fees will continue, the network fees will continue going up. So shout out to EOS Eyes, actually. They just added a new tab on they just added a new tab on their website for historical data, and the fees month over month. And this is partly in part because the price of RAM and the amount of TVL in the RAM pool has continued to go up. So I'll go February, March, and April. In February, there was 57,600 EOS in fees generated just from trading fees on the Bancorp pool. And then in March, it doubled, almost doubled, to 112,000 EOS in that month just from trading fees alone. And then last month, April, it hit a new all-time high of 215 million EOS generated in native fees just from the Bancorp pool. So the bigger the Bancorp pool gets, the bigger the trading fees get. The more trading pairs, so ETH, WRAM, then obviously there's a huge EOS RAM pool. The more trading pairs there are, the more arbitrage there is, the more trades that happen against the Bancorp pool. So this is the sustainability of the network, because we're turning inflation off. Eventually, the block rewards, the subsidized block rewards going to the block producers will end, but they will be replaced by network fees. So just to get an idea, every single day, the total block producer pool gets about 21,000 EOS or so. So that works out to what per month? I'm going to do terrible math. I'll just do the daily. It's 21,000.
Doesn't matter.
So
just do the daily.
Not too far off. 215,000 just from the RAM pool. I can envision a time once all this market making is going on, the pool's bigger. I could see the RAM Bancorp pool generating more fees than the subsidy going to block producers as block rewards, and that's native yield being generated by the chain. The Bancorp pool is a superpower of the chain because it's generating actual yield, and the bigger the pool is, the more trading pairs against RAM, against EOS, the more arbitrage that happens against that pool, the more fees that the network generates. So I see that as a huge change to the network economics. And we're seeing it's more obvious. It's even more obvious to me because previously you could always track the 20 on a lot of the front ends. You could see the 24-hour fees, or you could kind of see what's going into Rex. That's why I want to shout out to look at different time frames now of what the fees are actually being generated, how many buy orders, how many sell orders, total volume in EOS, total volume in USD, and it's getting more and more substantial. And I think if this proposal passes, and then once some of the different economics are implemented, I think the RAM pool could easily 5-10x in fees. And that's going to be quite significant. It's going to be more than the current block producer pool is getting as a whole. So that's exciting for me, and that's just brand new. I just noticed this feature this morning, and I've been telling everyone about it. So I apologize if it's a little bit annoying, but it's exciting to me.
Yeah, the entire proposal is made up of the feedback, the lessons learned, the wishes that we've heard, over an extended period of time. And so it might not be your cup of tea in every single portion, but the idea is this is as broad, but as deep as to be able to capture everything we've heard as much as possible. And again, it'll go to the block producers, and it's their choice to determine whether or not they want to move this forward, whether or not they want to send it back, and they want to make some changes to it. But so far, the feedback has been incredibly positive. And the idea is people really look at this as, instead of kind of a band-aid solution over and over and over, knowing what we knew, this is really changing the underlying mechanism completely. This is a complete refresh. This changes everything, similar to when EOS stopped being issued, RAM stopped being issued at a kilobit per block. It completely changed the economics and subsequent indirect components of what RAM entails. This would entirely change EOS is the idea. And so it is, it's quite monumental. It's kind of ripping the Band-Aid, for lack of a better term. And we're quite excited about it because this is a huge opportunity at a very key moment. And hopefully the BPs, see that and they'll be able to align with that and vote in favor of it. But it really is in their hands. Once we produce that code, once we audit it, once we deploy it on Jungle, and then we put it up for them, it really is up to them.
Trying to think of anything else we want to talk about.
I don't know. I mean,
the fees, I just can't. So the other interesting thing,
the fees are quite massive right now. Now, of course, the fees are sporadic, right? So you can have days where you have a lot of trading and days where you have a little bit less trading. But the underlying idea is that now the infrastructure providers are incentivized to be able to see more activity on chain. That's the underlying principle behind this. And so the more activity on chain, the more, of course, their costs go up because then their infrastructure costs go up, but then they're rewarded for that or they're compensated for that. And that's new. That was never the case before. In fact, what you see is the underlying asset go down in value and not having an offset to be able to basically offset those costs, while at the same time, because is what you mentioned earlier, staking rewards being given at roughly a rate of 80% of their BP rewards, they're really not funded very much to be able to provide that level of infrastructure. Now, because the network will be able to give yield, you may choose to not go through a BP, the BP will be able to keep more, and then the yield, you'll just get it at the protocol level, or like what we see right now, a BP, because the majority of the BPs offer these rewards through portals, either through Genpool, shout out to Genpool because they've made that tool very easy, or directly through their websites. You'll either go through the BP directly and add that little, 2 or 3 extra percent, or perhaps even more, because now they're getting rewards. And so it'll make the BP space even more competitive. So the cliff between 21 and 22 is going to grow, which will make the BP space more competitive than what it is right now, which ideally restarts kind of a race at the BP level to a certain extent, where now you have even more competition between block producers, as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think the real winners are going to be the token holders. Like I talked about Rex staking for a while. We showed the yield. I don't think block producers sharing in their block rewards is going to stop. It's integrated on chain as part of the protocol.
It'll be an extra.
All proof of stake chains. So all of that extra yield I was talking about generated from the RAM pool, a lot of that's inherently going to go to Rex staker, or any EOS voter really, if you're not in or out of Rex. But if you're in Rex, you're already getting at least 10% yield, unless more than 300 million tokens, then it could go down. But if it's 300 million tokens in Rex, or if it's less, it's even higher. You're going to get that plus, like if right now you're getting 2% for like staking rewards or voter rewards, that number is probably going to double or triple as the BPs are getting paid more because of the fees being geared towards them. So I'm excited for that, because if you're just holding EOS, like it's not doing anything. You could lock it up and generate yield from it without having to put it into an AMM or put it at any kind of custodial risk or anything like that. All right, so we went a lot longer.
Anything else on that proposal? I'm trying to think if there was anything else that has come about. No, I mean, I think that covers the majority of it. Read the article. So the article really goes into detail. It gives the debrief that we have with the block producers. It actually incorporates the feedback that we got on that call as well as part of the article, instead of putting this person said this. It's just, this is basically because what we're now working on is part of the feedback that we got in that call. So you get that debrief of essentially at this point what we're working on, aiming towards that end of May timeline.
I think I thought of something I wanted to say earlier is if you go on Nudex on their RAM chart, they make it real easy. You can do the calculation yourself what the actual market cap of RAM is, and you'll be able to see this also. WRAM, it got added to CoinGecko. Still waiting for it to get approved on CoinMarketCap, but it's currently not showing all of the data. But the current market cap of RAM is 125 million. That would put it as roughly the top 500, I think, chain or project on CoinMarketCap. But through the different incentives that's could continue to go up. And you'll have this dual token economy. So EOS was never really marketed as a dual token economy, even though it always has had a RAM market. It always has had RAM, but because it's not a token, most people never think of it like that. And that's a big part of WRAM, is when you're talking to people from these other ecosystems and you're explaining what RAM in this Bancor pool is, but RAM's not an actual token.
It is difficult, yeah.
Confuses them. But I think we'll start to see more of that. I honestly think that at some point the market caps of EOS and RAM could be very similar. And you saw this with NEO. I keep looking at NEO as a reference because NEO is one of the only other projects I'm aware of that has a dual token economy, where you stake NEO to generate gas, and then the gas token is what you use to transact on the chain. Whereas on EOS it's a little bit different, but it is a dual token economy. And at one point, the market cap of
there
gas
will be an equilibrium that's going to be reached. Yes. Yeah. And we don't know where that is or if that's going to be the case, but we're already starting to see the beginnings of that for sure. RAM was essentially always an asset. It was never really tokenized, or it wasn't tokenized, literally was not tokenized, but it also kind of was a token. And so now that's been formalized. Now you can actually transfer it. That change has been implemented in the latest system contracts a while back. It's also important for people to know that if we just look at the high level picture here, we've got different resources on EOS. We've got CPU, net, and RAM. CPU and net are replenishable resources, and those are the resources that people on EOS typically associate with, because those are the ones they're actually using. But underlying all of that, you've got RAM, which is a finite resource. But that actually is used in every thing you do as well, because at the base you need your account, and the more actions your account does, the more tables or rows it needs, the more RAM it consumes, the more RAM it needs. And so we've never really leveraged that resource until very recently. And what's really interesting with it is that RAM really has three states. There's unallocated RAM, allocated RAM, and consumed RAM. Unallocated RAM has been the majority of the RAM up until very recently. Unallocated means the system had it available for so that people could purchase it, but it hadn't been sold yet or hadn't been bought yet. Allocated RAM is you've bought the RAM, or somebody's bought the RAM. It's been allocated to an account. It belongs to somebody, but it's not been consumed yet. It has not been written to. And then consumed RAM is RAM that belongs to somebody, belongs to an account, and has been written to. When we look at the ratio in between each, since we've stopped the issuance of RAM, the proportion of unallocated to allocated has increased significantly. So I forget what it is currently live, but there's about, I think, 60 gigs or so still remaining for purchase, which means there's about 330 gigs or so that is currently allocated. Some of that allocated RAM, so there's 60 unallocated, I believe. I could go check in the background if you want to bring it up. 60, give or take, is still unallocated. 330 or so is allocated, but of the allocated RAM, again, I forget the exact number, but it's around 60 or 65 gigs or so that's allocated. What we see is that the majority of RAM is non-allocated. Is non-consumed, which means it's not been written to. People are leveraging this as an asset, in part as a speculative asset, but also as future-proofing asset, because you inevitably need this in order to be able to operate on chain. And so it'll also be interesting to see over time what is the general level of RAM that varies between the state of allocated and consumed. So I do believe what we're seeing, and part of this tokenomic proposal, is the level of unallocated RAM is going to shrink. The level of allocated RAM is going to grow. The level of consumed RAM really gives you an indication of how much is actually being consumed or leveraged on chain for particular accounts, smart contracts, whatever it may be. That will likely grow over time, but not at the same rate as allocated RAM. So you still have that buffer, basically. And this comes into play in multiple forms, and that's obviously very key for token listings, etc. Because we even had, for a very long time, we were even really optimistic about being able to have a RAM lending market. Part of the issue with the RAM lending market is, how do you lend RAM, or how do you get your RAM back when it's been consumed? So if I lend you RAM and I charge you a certain amount or whatever, and you write to it, that's why you're leasing my RAM is because you need it for something, then whenever the agreement ends, or if I decide to raise the price of the RAM, or what happens? Do you delete the rows in the RAM? Do you lose access to that? It kind of removes that immutability of whatever it is you wrote to the RAM. So not great. We thought about different kind of ways around that, either like a buffer type of thing. So that's still tricky. We've not really figured out how we'd be able to do that. We see clear issues. We've not been able to architect something around that. So that's left off the table, but it is something that's constantly in the back of my mind. How would you have a RAM leasing market? And the consumed versus allocated, or the consumed part, is really what makes this a non-starter right now.
I think from what
Anyways, now I went a little too deep.
You went way down the rabbit hole there.
But the idea is we really did listen to all of the feedback that we got, and that was one of them. People wanted that portion, or people wanted other things, and we really looked at either from a business point of view, a tech point of view, or a reaching consensus point of view. Can we put that in? If we do put that in, how do we put that in? And what form or shape will it take? And again, what you see is basically as much as we could put in while meeting that middle bar of what we believe is the lowest common denominator to be able to reach consensus.
Do you think it's going to pass?
I hope so. I really do. I mean, we put a lot of work and effort into this. A lot of people contributed to this. I really hope this this passes. I think it's timely. I think we need a change like this. Yeah, ultimately, I do hope that it passes. I do believe this is really good for EOS.
Me too. I could go down a whole other rabbit hole, but I keep talking about fees. Just because of the damn EOS.
Talk about the fees. Go for it.
Well, we have the Savannah hard fork July 31st, and we're not even like there's too much going on that we can't talk about everything at one time because it's already too much. But the things that Savannah enables, we used to talk about it because that was one of the leading narratives that we could decouple block production and create different types of nodes.
Yeah.
Now that this giant fee pool from power up and mainly RAM fees is going to the BPs, like plus the block reward subsidies that they've always received, roughly the 21,000 and a half per month. Like there's going to be a lot of fees to play with to like down the line. This is like let's go one step at a time. But as far as decoupling the BPs or expanding the BP set beyond 21, having these extra fees is very, very beneficial towards unlocking opportunities to do a number of things with what we currently call a block producer. That's a conversation for probably months.
That's a whole new conversation, but that was also something that was brought up is would we be able to start leveraging that function alongside this? Unfortunately, time is the big factor there. We are nowhere near being ready to be able to have a system that could leverage those new functions within the time that I guess is being deemed opportune for this particular change. So what we did do with that, though, is that what we are presenting and the way that we're doing it doesn't block the future potential to be able to leverage that function, as you put it. So yes, also that also went in the decision making process of essentially what was presented ultimately.
All right, so this is an hour 38 now. So I think it's time to probably.
I think the big beard banter that was supposed to be 5 minutes that went on for 40 minutes or so. I think we're good now.
That was a great big beard banter. And I'm happy I didn't tell my girlfriend, hey, looks like the show's not going to go too late tonight. I just never say those things anymore because you never know. That was great. I have a couple of comments, little notes I took from the conversation. One great question I had was the timelines, but then you guys brought it up there towards the end of the conversation. Sounds it's going to be an exciting couple of months for the EOS community. Hopefully everything lines up there as you described it. I do like this new change and focus on network fees. I think that's actually going to be super important in all of crypto in the future. It's like, hey, how much is your network generating in fees compared to how much is it emitting in inflation or et cetera. So I think that metric is actually going to be super important in the future to see which chain is going to be able to survive another 4, 8, 32 years, right? So I think that's great. Also like how a lot of these changes are aligning with kind of the general crypto market demands. So instead of inflation, we've got a lot of tokens that are now being emitted slowly to various buckets. like Yves says, the market likes that a lot more than the current model. And so I actually had a couple questions surrounding that. So right now you said, token max cap is infinity, so then we don't get a fully diluted value.
No, max cap is not infinity. Max cap is actually 10 billion.
Right. But
the coin market caps of the world are reporting it as infinity.
Right. Exactly.
And so you don't get an FPV field. You don't get an FPV field for EOS.
That's what I mean. We're going to get that now at 2.1 billion. Right?
We should have always had it.
We should have.
But it was never there.
Yeah.
I tried submitting a change for it, and they wouldn't change the infinity to 10 billion because
not yet.
You have to dig into the code and
No. We've tried to change this beforehand.
Yeah.
And then one technical question I had is, when you say we're going to go from 10 billion now to 2.1, is that emitting 8 billion and then burning it, or is that actually changing the cap from 10?
Oh, it's just changing the cap.
Yeah,
It is changing the cap.
Cool. And then some of these tokens are going to be in circulation, like you say, in market makers, et cetera, et cetera. So is that going to just instantly increase the market cap of EOS? And
so I guess 350 plus 15, so 365 million would now be counted towards increasing the market cap. Again, this is theoretical because some sites also look at, but are those actually in play? So the other tokens technically are not in play as well. They're vesting.
Yeah.
Some sites will actually count those, and they'll say, "Oh, but they are to come about," and so we will count them. Other sites, even for the ones that are currently that would be liquid, for example, the 350 and the 15, they might say yes, but they're not deployed. And so it really depends site per site, but those ones more likely will get the instant counting. The other ones more likely will not get the instant counting. So really right now EOS has 1.12 billion or so. Add an extra 360 million tokens, 365 is give or take what the token supply would change, most likely on most sites. And so it would add that market cap to that, which actually would raise EOS in terms of market cap ranking.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean with kind of.
And other chains have done this in the last year. Actually, multiple chains have done this over the past year.
Yeah, which is great. And then allows things like you said, like central exchange promos for yield. Hey, now there's 10% native. They restrict. They offer 20% as promo, etc. Which other chains? So it's kind of like EOS just has this full quiver of tactics to be able to use. The WRAM comment I thought was very interesting, how before people couldn't understand what RAM on EOS was. Okay, hold on, let's just wrap a token around. Now do you get it? Oh yeah, I can buy it and sell it. Now I get it.
Yes.
Just a simple thing like that actually goes a really long way. And the way EOS started, if those of us that have been here for 7 or 8 years or however long it's been, it's like everything was so unique and different, and it was hard to mesh with the rest of the ecosystem.
Very difficult.
Now everything's kind of integrated. We can be measured the way everyone else is, all of that stuff. So I think that's really good and really promising.
One thing we didn't hit on that I'm not going to get into the weeds, but the middleware bucket is very important. 15 million EOS completely liquid from the start, so it could be deployed quickly. That's all to enhance and improve the user experience in the wallet ecosystem, the portals, the light accounts, all of the things that people have been asking for. Like immediately disperse that funding, as long as there are teams ready, willing, and able to take on that work. And it was mentioned in the BP article recap, because it was mentioned on the BP call, that Grey Mass is one of the teams we're expecting to take on.
I'll actually correct you there. It's not Team Z, it is Grey Mass. No Team Z. There's no S on that team. So the idea is really to go towards Grey Mass for very specific things. Part of that also was feedback on how can we actually scale that team. And so that's in large part why that bucket is being made liquid immediately at the get-go. So that those tokens are earmarked not for Team Z, for Grey Mass. To be able to tackle on those things, to be able to hire staff, to be able to work on these things in parallel instead of subsequently one after another. So instead of having to wait a year and a half for certain things, they'd be able to scale up ideally and be able to work on 5-6 separate things all at once and releasing as it comes out.
Glad you clarified that. That's beautiful. No more deserving team that's added probably more technical value to the ecosystem. So awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I would agree with that as well.
There's one thing actually I forgot to mention that was kind of underlying to all of this. And we're just going to keep going on forever. So in terms of market cap ranking, EOS roughly 95th position right now. But one of the superpowers of EOS that was really critical or key to all of this within these conversations is that when you look at the 24-hour volume to market cap ratio, EOS is consistently in the top 15 to top 20. It is one of the superpowers. There's tremendous amount of volume on EOS. And so there's still a lot of wiggle room. So even if we go back to the what you brought up earlier in terms of making tokens liquid and kind of flooding the market with tokens, that was addressed by having those vesting schedules, not putting everything live all at once. And even though that will be live, will not be released immediately all in one go. We do have that luxury, though. We do have a lot of wiggle room there because of our 24-hour volume to market cap ratio is quite high. We have a significant discrepancy between where we are in that ranking and where we actually fall in the rankings. And so EOS is very much liquid. You can find it everywhere. There's very little slippage, even at high levels in terms of trading volumes, because it trades so much, because it's listed everywhere. And so that's a superpower that was kind of key underlying all of this to even bring this to life. All right, I guess we ended there.
Yeah, I don't want to add anything else for almost the 2 hours.
All right, like now let's stop talking. Okay.
Let's wrap it up there. Indeed.
Call to action though. Tomorrow, Thursday, every single Thursday in the EOS Global Telegram chat. I keep seeing people bring the Fireside Chat back. It never left. Every single Thursday, it's just in the Telegram group. We don't call it the Fireside Chat.
Do you mean Wednesday?
It's on Thursdays now because Wednesdays we have calls that just made it very difficult. So it is right. Thursdays, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So if you're in another time zone that doesn't do daylight saving, sorry, it moves around a little bit, but it's always 3 p.m. Eastern in the Telegram group, EOS Global. It's we could have the voice chat. I'll be on there tomorrow.
Exactly. And I know you guys are very active out there. So those of you who enjoyed the live chat portion of the Fireside, that's still available every week, just like before. Join the community
on Twitter. So join those too.
That's right. I've been doing a couple spaces on Twitter. Liam's been lining those up. Stubbed in for me last minute last week. So he's been doing a good job. And those have been really fun. You guys have been lining up some very interesting guests. So definitely check that out. All right. So that's it. Thanks, guys, for the great show. Thanks for all the conversation. I actually learned a lot because I hadn't read the article yet. I will go read the article that was published earlier today. And then other than that, I'm going to remind everyone, leave a like if you enjoyed the show, subscribe, and until next time, let's go EOS!